Wow, your cars look so shiny.
Thanks. I've been taking them to Green Gorilla Car Wash. Thanks to their new ceramic application, my cars have never had such a glossy shine.
Sounds expensive.
You haven't heard about their sale? Right now, their Jungle membership with ceramic coating is half off for every vehicle. Instead of $30 per month, I'm only paying $14.99 from now until September 2022.
That's almost a whole year.
I know. My half-price membership is good at both Green Gorilla locations in the Valley.
I better head there now.
Hey everybody, John Weiss from Heritage Jeep. Everybody knows that here in northern Utah, we've got one of the greatest Jeep playgrounds in the world, right here in our own backyard. And Heritage is Utah's Jeep outfitter. Right now, it's Jeep's Freedom Days at Heritage Jeep. What does that mean for you? 0% financing for 60 months on select new 2022 Jeep models OAC. Come on in and see us in Brigham City, Tremont, and Logan. Heritage Jeep, your hometown dealer with the biggest deals.
It's time for the Garden Guide with your host, Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden.
New research suggests that people are more likely to eat vegetables if they have a tempting name.
What would life be without homegrown tomatoes? Only two things that money can't buy, and that's true love and homegrown tomatoes.
From gardening to landscaping.
Today we are going to try and create garden eyebrows. Kind of like the flowers are sprouting directly from your hair. That makes sense.
Phone lines are open at 753-KVNU or 800-369-KVNU.
Kind of like eating vegetables.
It's the Garden Guide, now on KVNU 610 AM and 102 FM.
Good morning and welcome to the Garden Guide. This is Mark Anderson with Anderson Seed and Garden, and we are here. Beautiful day outside. We didn't have frost last night, at least not at my house, and so it's looking like some great weather to be outside and do some planting this week. So unfortunately, the willow pollen has kicked up this week, and I just kind of had to suffer a little bit. So the willow pollen and I do not get along really very well. So I had allergies kicking up like crazy this week. And as you can tell, I have a less of a voice than I usually do, but we'll still make it work today. And fortunately, I've got Al here to answer the phones for me.
I don't know what allergies I have. It's just about 3 or 4 days a year I struggle. The rest of the time I'm fine. And it seems like always I get it worse here in the spring. I told people a couple of weeks ago, when it rains in the spring, the day it rains is when I really get it.
It kicks up. Yeah, that's crazy. But for me, it's willow. And found that out many years ago. We had a big weeping willow tree next to our house, and just at certain times of the year I'd just be miserable. And then we finally got rid of that willow, and all of a sudden it kind of got a lot better. So you just never know how that's going to work out. But on the Garden Guide today, we've got all kinds of great things we can talk about. So a lot of things happening outside. Looking at the forecast, it looks like we probably won't have frost for the rest of this month, which would be amazing to not have to worry about frost, so we can get out there and do some planting. And gardens are ready to go. I got mine all tilled and cleaned up last week. Got some potatoes planted. My carrots and beets are all up. Peas are starting to really grow. And it's time to start thinking about some of those cold crops.
I know they always call you the garden guru or garden Google.
Yes.
They said Utah Googled how to do potatoes more than any.
Interesting.
They had that out this week. They've gone through and done a survey. Like Idaho, they did zucchinis or they did something else because they know how to do potatoes. But potatoes are kind of the big deal in this part of the country. But there was potatoes, zucchini, cucumbers, and carrots, I think, were the biggest ones across the country.
That people had searched.
That look for vegetables. How
to do that. That's so interesting. So at Anderson Seed and Garden, we've got greenhouses restocked. So after last weekend, we sold through so many plants. We restocked on Monday, sold through some more plants, restocked again yesterday. So the greenhouses are full. We've got a great selection of trees and shrubs, lots and lots of flowers to get outside and beautify your yard with. So a lot of things happening at Anderson's this weekend. Of course, this week, if you didn't make it, you missed out. We had our tomato clinic this past Wednesday. And so we're trying to do classes every Wednesday that kind of coincide with the Wednesday market on Center Street. So this past week we did our tomato clinic, which was great. We learned all the secrets to growing successful tomato plants. And this coming week on Wednesday at 12:15. So we start at 12:15 so that you have time to come down to the market, maybe browse the market a little bit, grab something to eat before you come to the class. And at 12:15 we start our seminar, and it's about a half an hour with a little bit of time afterwards for asking questions if you'd like to do that. And this week we're talking about our hanging basket secret recipe. So we'll be teaching you all about our secret recipe, how to make your hanging baskets and planters look amazing. So we're going to cover that this week on our market. It's called Lunch and Learn. So we're trying to do a Lunch and Learn every Wednesday. And it's not every single Wednesday, but it's the majority of Wednesdays throughout the summertime at 12:15 at Anderson Seed and Garden. So that should be a lot of fun. And a lot of things happening, like I said, this week. It's a great time to get out and spray your stone fruit trees. A lot of disease has been showing up the last couple of years. This is a perfect time to try and get that under control with the blossoms that just fell off this last week. A codling moth spray for apples and pears we won't need to start until the first week of June. So we can definitely talk about that today. Some good options for you to get your trees sprayed. And fertilizing lawn, weeds are out of control right now. And probably the biggest question we've got at Anderson's is how to conserve water this year. So we have a lot of people concerned about whether they're going to have enough water to water their lawns, how they can conserve water on their flower beds and in their gardens as well, too. And that's definitely something we can talk about on the show today as well. So a lot of topics to talk about. Phone lines are open, 753-5868, 753 KVNU or 1-800-369-5868. And we have our first caller, Dixie. Welcome to the Garden Guide.
Thank you. When the blooms are off the tulips, is it okay to cut the green part down and so you have room to make other plants?
Absolutely. So what I usually will recommend is that when the flowers are done, cut the flowers off the plants, but leave the stem up. And so this is just something that I learned last year, but leave the stem and the leaves up as long as possible, and just take that spent flower off so it won't develop seeds, because those tulips will set seeds and it'll steal strength from the bulb to produce those seeds. So just take that flower off, leave the stem, leave the leaves, and when the leaves kind of start to die down, which is usually the latter part of May, just in time to plant annual flowers, when they start to die down, then you can either just cut them down to the ground and get rid of the leaves and the stem, or you can dig the bulbs up, leave the stem and the leaves attached to the bulb, put them in a bushel basket or a cardboard box, put it in a cool, dry area like down in the basement through the summertime, and just let them dry down there. And then in the fall, you can replant those in September, October, and you pull that box out, pull the bulbs out. All the tops will be all dried up, brown and crispy. Just break those off the bulbs, and the bulbs will be nice and full. They will have fed the bulbs all summer long with those green stems. So it'll keep your bulbs in better shape that way if you decide to do that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. It's nice to kind of pull those up at least every few years. That way you can replant them and fertilize and rejuvenate that soil a little bit. But you can also just leave them in the ground, just let them naturalize as well, too. So you could go either way, Dixie.
Oh, great. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, bye.
Thanks for calling this morning. All right, we've got phone lines open, 753-5868, 753-KVNU, or 1-800-369-5868. You're welcome to join me and Al here on the Garden Guide. And like I said, we did our tomato clinic this week at Anderson Seed and Garden on Wednesday, and the tomato clinic was very successful. We had about 15 people there, and we talked about how to be successful growing tomatoes, and to how to transplant, how to dig your holes, how to prep the soil, what to fertilize with, cages, frost protection, and all those fun things that go along with keeping your tomatoes looking great throughout the summer. I do have a video on our website, and it's also on YouTube, that is called our Tomato Magic Formula. And if you not Google that, but just search that on YouTube, search Anderson Seed Tomato Magic Formula, you can watch that video. It's only about 7 or 8 minutes long, and it will just kind of walk you through the whole process of what we do to get our tomato plants to just produce like crazy. And last year, my tomato plants were some of them were 5 to 6 feet tall and about 3 feet across, and we harvested about a bushel to a bushel and a half off of each tomato plant. And keep in mind, we had 30 plants in the garden last year, and so needless to say, we had so many tomatoes we didn't know what to do with them. They were just going crazy, but it's kind of our experimental garden, so we try all kinds of different stuff, and it's a lot of fun to have some different tomatoes growing in the garden there. So again, phone lines are open, 753-5868, 753-KVNU. And if you'd like to call in and join us here on the Garden Guide, that would be spectacular. Next up, we've got Ron on the phone. Ron, welcome to the Garden Guide.
Hi, Mark.
How are you today?
I am just fine, thanks. I've got a question about tall horse chestnut trees. If there is a chemical way like Florel or Carbaryl to decrease or eliminate the fruit production, or as most people say, just get out the chainsaw.
That is always a possibility, Ron. That is always a possibility. So the fruit that come off of the horse chestnuts look like landmines, and they've got big spines on them. And I remember having a lot of fun with those when I was a kid. But they are quite a nuisance. And the best way to prevent those is to spray them while they're in bloom with the Florel. Yeah, I wouldn't do the 7. The 7 will help thin apples, but I don't think it will do anything for the horse chestnuts. But the Florel will do a great job. And the Florel, what it does is it just makes the tree think that the fruit has matured too far, and it's kind of gone overripe, and so it will shed that fruit. It'll make it drop off, even though it hasn't even really developed properly. And so it's a natural hormone. It won't bother your trees. It won't bother the surrounding plants. It won't hurt flowers that are below it. It won't hurt people. It won't hurt bees. But it does a great job at eliminating a lot of that unwanted fruit. So Florel at about 3 ounces per gallon, and then just spray all the blossoms that you can reach while they're open.
And I got a price estimate yesterday, so that's roughly $100 per tree per year. Does that sound about right?
Depends on how big the tree is. And so if it's a large tree and it takes a lot of spray, to have somebody come and do that for you, that could be travel time, all that's a part of that equation. But if you were to do it yourself, you can buy probably a quart of the Florel for around $30 to $35, I think. That's off the top of my head. Don't hold me to it. Just whether your sprayer will spray that high or not is sometimes a little bit difficult. Sometimes it's nice to have somebody else come and do it for you.
Okay.
All right.
Super. Thanks very much.
Thanks for calling this morning, Ron. You are the best. Thanks for calling. All right. Phone lines are still open, 753-5868, 753-KVNU, but we are starting to get a flurry of phone calls coming in. So next up we have Laurel on the line. Laurel. Lori. Oh, there we go. Lori, there we go. There we go.
Hi.
How are you, Lori?
Hey, I have a greenhouse, and I started some tomatoes back in February, March.
Yes.
And they were doing great. They got like about a foot tall, and then the ends of the leaves started curling, and then the next leaf, and then the next, and I had to throw them out. They're gone.
Darn it.
What happened?
That is a great question. I started some tomatoes with my gardening class in February as well too, and they are good sized. I mean, they're probably 12 to 16 inches tall right now, and some are not quite that tall because they're kind of growing out. What I have found with growing them inside, and I've had the same problem before, where they just have looked great, and then all of a sudden started to decline. There's a few diseases that could be problematic, especially if you don't have really good air circulation. And so if you don't have a lot of air movement, the tomatoes can pick up a little bit of a disease that can cause them to decline as they're growing along. So as I get them germinated and up and growing, I get them out of the greenhouse domes that I start them in as quickly as possible, because they just will be more susceptible to things that way, and try and toughen those plants up a little bit. And then I get the lights on them so that they are staying green and healthy inside, because there's not enough light outside in March to keep the tomatoes happy. But I will use just a light fungicide on the plants when I fertilize them, which is about every week. So I fertilize every week during that interior growth period. Otherwise, the plants kind of starve a little bit. And so I'll
what kind of fungicide?
The Complete Disease Control from Monterey. And it's a natural fungus. It's actually, a natural bacteria, but it's a good bacteria instead of a bad bacteria. And I just mix that right in with the fertilizer. This is part of our tomato secret recipe that we taught everybody about this week at the tomato clinic. But the Complete Disease Control controls all kinds of diseases, powdery mildew. It works on leaf spots, but on the tomato plants, it works on early and late blight. It works on soil-borne diseases like verticillium and fusarium, and it works in the soil as well as on the plant. And so I just use that in with the fertilizer, and I water them with it once every week or so when they need to be watered, and it really helps keep the diseases down. I would suspect you got a little bit of damp off or some pythium that kind of happens inside when you have a little bit too much humidity, and the plants will just start to decline, and the Complete Disease Control will stop that, keep that from happening.
They were gorgeous, and I watched them just die.
Yeah, it's not fun when you've spent all that time trying to get them going in the first place. So,
okay, Complete Disease Control by who is it by?
By Monterey, and then some good air circulation. So where I have my plants growing, there's it's pretty close to some like air intakes, and also close to some heat vents, but it doesn't blow right on them, but the air circulates really well there, and so it kind of keeps the air moving, and the air's a little bit drier, and so it'll dry the soil out a little bit quicker. If they're staying really wet and soggy and damp, they're more likely to get damp off.
Yeah, that's probably what happened. Yeah, I just have a tiny little greenhouse, and I do turn the fan on when I can't open a vent or something because it's too cold.
Right.
But
that air circulation is critical to keep those plants looking
good. Good to know.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You are so welcome. Thanks for calling this morning, Lori. Have a good one. All right. Phone lines are still open, 753-5868, 753-KVNU. And our next caller is Gail. Good morning, Gail.
Good morning. So last week on your radio show, you started right off telling about a way to keep your carrots to make a jump start to get them going right off.
Yes.
You never told us what that was.
It was a secret, and you were supposed to come and ask me. No, just kidding. I actually had quite a few people.
I live in Idaho, though.
I had quite a few people that came in the store last weekend and asked me that very question. They're like, "I wanted to hear how you did your carrots."
Okay.
Yeah. So this is what I do, and it works so well, because we used to try all kinds of different tricks to get the carrots to come up. We'd use a 2x4, and you could use like peat moss to cover them up with, or potting soil, and it had all these different methods that we'd tried, and they'd always take about 3 weeks for the carrots to come up. And then a few years ago, I used a new product that's I guess it's not really a new product, but a new method that we'd never tried before, and that was with coconut core. Now, coconut core is the exterior of the coconut. So they take this core off the exterior of the coconut, and they grind it all up, and it's very fibrous. And so it's not like peat moss where it just disintegrates really quickly over time. It sticks around a lot longer, and it's kind of it works like a filter. And so when I plant my carrots, what I'll do is I'll rake the area where I'm going to do my carrots, and I do a wider row. I do about an 8-inch wide row of carrots. And so I rake a 20-foot long section about 8 inches wide, and I just rake that area so it's nice and smooth. And then I'll put a little bit of fertilizer in there. So tomato and vegetable food from Natural Guard, Happy Frog tomato and vegetable food. There's a whole bunch of different fertilizers you could put in there that won't burn the seeds as they start to germinate. But I'll sprinkle that right down the row, and then I'll rake that in very lightly too. So I'll just make little chicken scratches out there. And then I sprinkle the seeds over that area, and then I rake it again very lightly. Again, just chicken scratches, and it just kind of barely covers up some of the seeds, and others are still left on the surface. But then I take my brick of coconut coir, and the coconut coir has been dehydrated and made into this brick, and so it's just this big dry brick of coconut coir, and you put it in water. So the smaller bricks, you put in about a gallon of water, and in the large bricks, you put in about 8 to 9 gallons of water, and the bricks will absorb up every drop of water. It'll just absorb it all up, and it expands. And so the smaller bricks will turn into about not quite a cubic foot of coconut coir, and the big bricks turn into about 4 cubic feet, maybe a little bit more. And then I take that coconut coir, it's nice and moist, and I sprinkle that right over the carrot seeds, and I cover them up about 1/4 of an inch with the coconut coir. So just that whole area where I planted the carrot seeds, and I do it with my beets and my chard as well too. I just put that coconut coir over the top, and then I kind of pat it down, or I'll step on it just to kind of compact it. And then I mix up some seed starter, which comes from Bicor, local company, made right here in Cache Valley, it's right here in Logan. Seed starter comes in a concentrate, and I mix that up, and that makes the seeds germinate much, much faster, and it makes them root like crazy when they first emerge out of the seeds. And so I water the carrots with that. And the great thing about the coconut coir is it stays in place, and it kind of filters the water so it doesn't wash the seeds away. And that's the problem that I had when I was covering it up with peat moss or the potting soil. It's so lightweight. You water and it just washes away, and it washes the seeds away with it. But the coconut coir keeps the seeds in place, and it lets that water filter through, so it hydrates those seeds and the soil up underneath really well. And the coconut coir is very, very absorbent, so it holds all this excess moisture. And so instead of having to go out and water my carrots every single day, I can go like 3 or 4 days now in between waterings without having to water them, and the carrots just come up so much faster. Like this year, they were up in 12 days instead of 21. So they almost come up in half the time of what it usually takes. I think they were 11 or 12 days, and my carrots were up this year. And so I didn't even have to water them this year. With all the rainstorms that we had, I mean, there's a storm coming through like every 4 or 5 days. I didn't even water them once this spring, and they're all up like crazy, and the beets and the carrots as well too. So that's my carrot secret, Gail.
Oh, okay. Yep. And you've got the
coconut coir. We carry that in stock all the time. So I have like the smaller bricks. They run around $5, I think. They're like $4.99, $5. And the bigger bricks, I think, are $14.99. And I have a big long row where I do my carrots and my beets and my chard all together. And so I just do one of the big bricks, and it's like perfect.
Okay. I probably have seen those and didn't have a clue what those were.
Yeah. The coconut coir is not taking the place of peat moss, but a lot of soil companies are mixing it in with the peat moss because it's so absorbent. It gives you extra water holding capacity, and it's about the same price as the peat moss, so it doesn't really increase the cost of the product, but it really does increase the quality. And so between the peat moss and the coconut coir and some vermiculite and some perlite, a potting mix that has that in there is like your highest quality potting mix that you'll be able to find. It's all organic, it's all natural, and just absorbs and holds the moisture, and that coconut coir doesn't dissolve and break down as quickly as the peat moss does, so it sticks around a lot longer.
Okay, great to know. I appreciate you sharing your secret.
You are so welcome. Thanks for calling this morning, Gail. I really appreciate the phone call. Have a great weekend.
Bet.
All right.
You must have a big bucket to put that the big brick in, or
I do
a big.
I do it in my wheelbarrow.
Yeah. If it's going to expand like that,
I do it in a 6 cubic foot wheelbarrow, and I have I know exactly how much water to add, and it's about 8 to 9 gallons, and I just throw that brick in there, and it takes about a half an hour, and it's just like.
As you were saying,
it just
even
absorbs
the small one, this big, you could almost put it even in a small bucket.
Oh yeah, the smaller brick, I'll put a gallon of water in a 5-gallon bucket, and then I put the brick in there, and it just absorbs it all up and it expands. And it's not quite a cubic foot. And it's an experiment we do with my gardening class in the wintertime, and I leave that in our classroom for about 7 weeks while we do the class. And at the end of the class, the coconut core is still hydrated all the way through, except for like the top inch.
Hasn't dried out at all.
It doesn't dry out. Yeah, it just holds that moisture so well. So it's a really fun experiment to do because they get to come back to class every week, and then I show them, it's like, look, the coconut core is still wet. It's been sitting here on the table for the last week, and it's still wet. And by the end of the class, it's still wet.
You're giving some science teachers a pretty good idea about something they could do in the classroom or something.
This is fun. Yeah, this is definitely fun. So we are close to the bottom of the hour, so we'll probably take a break here in just a second. Phone lines, 753-5868, 753-KVNU, or 1-800-369-5868. If you'd like to join us here on the Garden Guide, we've got a lot of things we can talk about. We've been talking tomatoes, we've been talking coconut core, how to plant your carrots, great time to fertilize the lawn. We definitely want to talk about water conservation this month for sure, and all summer, on how to save some water on your lawn, in your garden, in your flower beds. I've got some great ideas, some great suggestions on how to do that. And we've got the Memorial Day weekend coming up next weekend. Great sale going on at Anderson's next week. Watch the mail for our flyer. I think it's coming out probably Tuesday or Wednesday of next week, and we'll have some great specials going on for Memorial Day weekend. But in the meantime, we're going to take a short break here at the Garden Guide. You're welcome to call in with your questions or comments. We'd love to have you join us, 753-5868, 753-KVNU, and we'll be back here on the Garden Guide in just a few minutes.
With your KVNU News update this hour, brought to you by Mount Logan Laundry, I'm Will Feelright. Well, Utah's non-farm payroll employment for April increased an estimated 3.9% during the last year, with the state's economy adding a cumulative of 62,400 jobs since April of 2021. That brings Utah's current job count to 1.6 million. April's seasonally adjusted unemployment rate is now estimated to be at 1.9%, with approximately 33,000 Utahns unemployed, while the national unemployment rate has held steady at 3.6%. Mark Nold, chief economist at the Department of Workforce Services, said the unemployment rate has fallen to a new low. Overall, all 10 of Utah's major private sector industry groups posted net year-over-year job gains, led by trade, transportation, and utilities. And thousands of parents in Utah and across the country are struggling to find formula to feed their babies, and there's a push right now to transfer formula from stores that have stock to those that do not. At his monthly news conference this week, Utah Governor Spencer Cox said his office is taking a look at the issue and talking to retailers about making it happen. Cox explained that his team has met with the FDA and the USDA. The governor said that effort is not a program per se, but is merely a discussion at this point. Well, looking at mostly clear skies to continue, as daytime temperatures are going to stay right around the mid-60s, with overnight temperatures staying right around the mid-30s. And then we're going to gradually warm back up. By the first of this next week, we'll be into the high 60s, and we should get back into the 70s by later in this next week. Get more on these and other stories at CacheValleyDaily.com. I'm Will Feelright for KVNU News.
From ABC Sports, I'm Mark Remillard. Last night, Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals seemed in the Mavs' favor. Dallas led by as many as 19 points against the Warriors, but Golden State exploded in the fourth quarter, scoring 43 points and grabbing a 126-117 win.
Clay, dribble drive, throws it out to Curry, steps to his left, takes the three, got it!
The call on KGMZ, Steph Curry finished with 32 points. The Warriors now take a 2-0 series lead. To hockey, the Oilers overpower the Flames in the third period.
McLeod off the boards, Bouchard. McLeod lets it go through, Evander Kane. Left circle, Keith. Open man, Bouchard winds, fires and scores.
The call on 6:30 CHED. Oilers win 5-3 and not the second-round series at 1 game apiece, while the Hurricanes top the Rangers 2-0 and take a 2-0 series lead. This is ABC.
Cache Valley's biggest party, the Cache Valley Cruise-In, is celebrating 40 years. 40 years of classic cars, concerts, and giveaway cars. This year, the Cruising Association is giving away 2 cars to one lucky winner. A 93 Chevy Corvette and a 68 Ford Mustang. Your entry ticket to the Cruise-In gives you a chance at winning both cars. June 30th through July 2nd, over 1,000 classic cars, motorcycles, hot rods, and custom builds from around the country. Enjoy delicious, all-American food and live music featuring Granger Smith, with special guest Earl Dibbles Jr. and opening act Sawyer Brown. Buy tickets today at Lee's Marketplace or online on the Cache Valley Cruise-In website. June 30th through July 2nd at the Cache County Fairgrounds.
It's the Garden Guide on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Good morning and welcome back to the Garden Guide. This is Mark Anderson with Anderson Seed and Garden, and we're here to answer your questions, hopefully solve some problems, and help you be successful out in your garden, whether it's in your vegetables or flowers or just trees and shrubs, or if you just want low maintenance, we can help you with all those particular problems as well too. So during the break, we had a caller, Laurie, that was on the line. Laurie, give us a call back. We lost you there somewhere. I don't know if you're a cell service. We lost cell service with you, but make sure and give us a call back. We'd love to try and answer your question. And the phone lines are open, 753-5868, 753-KVNU, or 1-800-369-5868. We've been talking about all kinds of great things happening outside right now, planting carrots. Looks like our weather is going to be cooperative, and we don't have frost in the forecast for the next 10 days, which should get us to the first part of June. We've got our fingers crossed through Memorial Day. No more frost in the forecast, which means we can get out there and plant our beans.
I've had 4 or 5 people tell me that a lot of them say, I don't plant anything to Memorial Day.
Right.
Yeah. But here's Memorial Day coming up.
It's coming up next week. And, we had frost this week, and it looks like that might be our last frost. And frost usually hits around the full moon, and that was Monday. And so I think we're past our potential for frost for this month. And rarely do we get a frost in June, unless you live over in Bear Lake or Star Valley. Had some customers in yesterday from Star Valley, so it's always a possibility over there. But at this point, beans and corn could be planted, sunflowers. We could start planting our tomatoes and our peppers, squashes, melons, cucumbers. I started some cucumbers, some different cantaloupes that I can't get out of our greenhouse, and a bunch of squashes and pumpkins on Thursday of last week, and they're ready to transplant out right now. So Thursday night, so basically Friday morning, they got planted, watered, and they were up in 3 days, and they are ready to transplant out. So it's definitely not too late to even start some seeds indoors if you want to transplant those out for Memorial Day next week. So that would be a great option if you felt like just your soil wasn't warm enough or it's been too cold. And looking at the forecast, we don't have really warm temperatures. We're kind of like 60s and maybe a few 70s thrown in there, and an 80 on Thursday of next week. So we don't have really warm temperatures. So if you're a little bit hesitant to plant some plants out, definitely want to use some hot caps or walls of water or aquadomes to keep those tomatoes and peppers a little warmer and a little bit happier through the colder evening temperatures, and they'll get established a lot faster and get grown a lot quicker. So that's one thing we talked about in our tomato clinic on Wednesday of this week, is we talked about putting down weed barrier or black plastic before planting. So prior to planting, maybe even 2 weeks before you plant, put that weed barrier, put that black plastic out. It'll generate some heat in the soil, and warmer soils, the plants will get established faster, they'll grow quicker, they'll produce faster, and so putting that weed barrier, that black plastic out, will really generate some heat in your soil and get those those tender crops to really come along faster. And then we definitely recommend, walls of water or aquadomes on the tomatoes and the peppers to really increase their growth, accelerate that growth quickly, and get them established a lot faster, but also protect them from the frost. But they're more of a growth enhancer than they are necessarily a frost protector. But then when your plants are ripening in the fall, if you've got that weed barrier down in the garden, it will continue to generate a lot of heat, and it will help ripen up your tomatoes faster in the fall. So if you're having a hard time getting your tomatoes to ripen up before we get frost in September, the weed barrier will help early on in the season to get them established and get that soil warmed up and get them to produce quicker. But it'll also generate a lot of heat in September when the nighttime temperatures are starting to get colder and the tomatoes, they don't ripen up as fast. And so generating that heat in the early spring and also in the later fall will make a big difference. And then like a frost cloth over the tomatoes in the fall will also protect them from frost, but it'll generate a lot of heat to get those tomatoes to ripen up a lot faster. So if you're struggling in September to get those tomatoes to ripen, weed barrier in the spring, frost cloth in the spring, and also in the fall to help retain some of that heat during the day and get those tomatoes to ripen up. It'll generate that heat during the day, but it'll retain that heat through the nighttime and get those tomatoes to ripen up a lot faster. So a lot of things we can talk about on the Garden Guide. If you want to call in with questions or comments, 753-5868, 753 KVNU. We've got to talk about water conservation today because it's getting close to that time of year when it's going to really, really warm up. Grasshoppers are starting to show up. We're hearing about those right now. Ladybugs and praying mantids, we have those in stock right now. So if you're dealing with aphids, great time to stop in at Anderson's and get those. And Memorial Day weekend is next week. So we've got a flyer coming out in the mail that you should receive, and got some great deals and some great specials going on next week for Memorial Day. So watch for that flyer in the mail. Next caller is Tammy. Welcome to the Garden Guide, Tammy.
Hi, Mark.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. If I don't lose my voice today, I'll be in great shape. So.
Oh, I know how that is. I lose mine all the time.
There we go.
So I have a question. I was explaining to my sister about Cazeron, and she has not used it yet, and she was asking me if it was okay to put them on. And she has the June bears. And I told her no because her new shoots are coming up.
Correct.
And she asked me when to put that on, and I told her April. And then she asked, well, if it's in the ground in April, isn't it still working in May when the new shoots are coming up?
It does.
And I couldn't really explain that to her.
Yep, it does. And so the way the Cazeron works is it will just kill everything that is growing in the area where you apply it unless it has bark on it or if it's a cane. So it won't bother cane plants like roses or raspberries or grapes, and it won't bother shrubs or trees that have bark on them, but it will damage pretty much everything else that's out there that's just green and leafy. Works on morning glory, works on grass, works on all kinds of weeds.
And how long does it work?
It lasts for 6 to 8 months. And so,
okay,
yes,
now that's the part that I couldn't explain to her was the fact that if it's still working, why isn't it going to hurt those new shoots in May if it doesn't damage them in April, but it does damage them in May?
So the way it works is you want to apply it as early as possible in the season, like March or even early April. Get it on before those new shoots come up, and then it won't bother the new shoots as they're coming up. But if you haven't applied it before the new shoots come up, you can apply it when those new shoots are up because they're just green and soft. And as you apply the herbicide, it's at its most potent, and it could damage those new shoots as they're coming up. But if you put it on in March, it's not at its most potent, but it's working in the soil, and it won't damage those new shoots as they emerge. But you can also apply it later, like the end of May, first part of June, when those new shoots have come up and they've started to go woody. So when you start to see those new shoots go from a green stem to more of a brown, harder cane, then you can still apply the Cazeron at that point and won't damage those new ones. And so it's all about timing of when you make the application. So if you get it on before that new growth comes up, it won't bother them. But if you apply it right when they're emerging, then it could damage those new shoots for sure.
Okay, that does make a lot of sense.
Okay.
when she was asking me all these questions, I'm like, I don't know.
No, that's all right. That's all right. Those are great questions. But you can apply it after the new shoots are up, once they've started to turn woody, which could happen in June for sure. Yeah.
In June sometime, okay.
Yeah. And then you get control the rest of the season.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead, Tammy.
My other question is, okay, the frost proof, that spray that you put on your plants.
Oh yeah, the freeze
We
proof.
mostly use that. Mostly use that in the fall to protect our tomatoes, but I'm wondering, can you spray it on in the spring? Does it help the young plants also?
Oh, absolutely.
Freezing?
Absolutely. So we've done spring applications as well as fall applications with the freeze proof, and it will give you about 5 to 7 degrees of added protection.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it really helps a bunch with the new tender plants, but also with the bigger, more established plants in the fall as well too. So
And it doesn't harm the tender plant.
no. So it works great. Flowers, you can use it on vegetables, edibles. Works great. Unfortunately,
too early and
it's becoming difficult
you
to
can't cover
find.
everything. That's a good thing to use.
Yeah, the freeze proof is just becoming difficult to find because the company that made it decided not to make it anymore because of the cost. It was just getting too expensive, and so as of right now, it's not on the market. But we're hoping that it comes back out one of these days.
Oh, well, I'm glad I have a bottle from last year then.
Yeah, the freeze proof is amazing stuff. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Mark.
You are so welcome. Thanks for calling this morning, Tammy. Have a great weekend.
You too.
All
Bye.
right. We'll see you. Phone lines are open, 753-5868, 753-KVNU. You're welcome to call in and join us here on The Garden Guide. Al Lewis and Mark Anderson with Anderson Seed and Garden. We're here to answer your questions. Next up, we've got Todd. Welcome to The Garden Guide, Todd.
Good morning, Mark. How you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Oh, that's great. I have a couple questions for you, and I'll make it quick for you.
Sounds good.
So you don't lose your voice.
I know. If I have to talk like this all day about 2 o'clock, I'm not going to have voice left. So.
Well, I'll make it quick for you. Hey, I got brown tips on my onion plants, and I've been, doing the kangaroo watering every week like we're supposed to.
But
could that be the weather and the stress?
Very likely. In fact, I would say if the stems are all green and nice and pretty, and then you got a little bit of brown or yellowing up on the top, we did have a couple frosts in the last week or two, and that new growth could be damaged a little bit if it gets cold enough, especially if you've transplanted them fairly recently. So what I usually recommend is you just take a hedge trimmer and just take the top inch or so off the top of the onions, and it'll just grow right back, and they will do they'll do just fine if you don't like that discoloration on the tops of the onions. But throughout the growing season, we'll trim them down a couple times, especially if they want to go to seed. If they start to send up flower stalks, we'll cut those off as well too, and they just grow right back.
Okay, because I thought I had killed them.
No, they'll be fine. So I've had my onions out for probably 4 or 5 weeks now. I think we planted them the first part of April, which was a little later than I like to, but the weather was not cooperative, and so I've got a little bit of yellowing on the tops of mine, but they've all taken off really well. They're starting to grow like crazy, so I'm about due to fertilize them again. So last year I made the mistake of just fertilizing them when I planted them, but then I didn't fertilize them 6 or 8 weeks later, and they just didn't mature very well. Of course, it was really hot and dry last summer, so the onions didn't do great in the first place. But the second application of a fertilizer on the onions about 6 or 8 weeks after your first application will really make a big difference to get a lot bigger onions. So I'm going to probably fertilize mine next week and give them another little shot of something to keep them going through the first part of summer.
Was that the vegetable food then? Or
the tomato and vegetable food, yeah. Either the Happy Frog tomato and vegetable food or the Natural Guard tomato and vegetable food. I'm going to try the Pro Grow 365 this year on my onions and see how that works. So I'm due to put that on this week. So.
I'm glad that you led me into that next question of the 365.
Yeah.
I got a bag of that, and I haven't even used it yet.
Yes, I did my carrots with it when I planted them, and so I'm super excited to see how it works on the carrots. I used it last year on my squashes, melons, cucumbers, and on some of the tomatoes. and I couldn't believe the difference. And my plants just went crazy on it last year. So really great fertilizer. It's a one application, lasts the entire year. I just did my potatoes last week, and we put the 365 in with the potatoes. So I'm excited to see how that works as well too. And sulfur. So I use sulfur and then I watered them with the complete disease control and the kangaroo. So I'm hoping for a much better potato crop this year.
Okay, and with the onions already established, you just put it in the
sprinkle it right along the side, and you can just kind of hill it up and just kind of put a little bit of soil over the onions, or just water it and let it work its way into the soil. It will work just fine. So,
okay, I can do that then, and then. You said also on the plants you can do that, like it says on the label.
Yeah. So last year I had my squashes and melons and cucumbers and tomatoes and peppers planted already, and then I went and I just side dressed it around the plants, and didn't even, most of them I didn't even like rake it in with. I just left it right there around the plants, and as it got watered, it just released that nutrient into the soil, and the plants picked it up and loved it. They went crazy with it.
Okay, because that's what I'm thinking I'm going to do for the garden too.
And for the listeners that don't know about the 365, the ProGrow 365 is a complete fertilizer. It's got all the beneficial microbes and microorganisms, mycorrhiza, compost. It's got all kinds of great stuff built into it. It's a combination product that has a lot of soil conditioners as well as natural nutrient sources for your plants in there. So not only does it feed the plants, but it feeds your soil as well too. So it enhances the soil, builds the soil back up so that it can feed the plants as well. So great fertilizer. Okay. All organic, all natural.
All right.
Perfect.
Well, that's all I have for you today,
perfect for your raised bed gardens, Todd.
Yes, it is.
Yep, it would be just right.
All right. Hey, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for calling this morning, Todd. Have a lovely weekend.
You too.
All right. Thank you. All right. We got about 10 minutes left in the show here on the Garden Guide. Phone lines are open, 753-5868, 753-KVNU, or 1-800-369-5868. So temperatures are going to start warming up. You're going to be wishing that you had applied a couple products to your lawn so that you didn't have to water as much this summertime. I've had a lot of homeowners come in that had water restrictions last year, and they were able to keep their lawns looking relatively green and nice with only one application of water per week last year, where they were restricted down to once a week waterings. And so we have highly recommended a couple different products. One is called Back to Green. Back to Green is made locally. It's made down in Layton area. Has a high dose of iron in there, so it'll really, really green your lawn up. And it also has a soil penetrant in there that lasts 60 to 90 days. And what it does is once it gets into your soil, it is very, very, very attractive to water. And so it absorbs the water down into the soil a lot better. And then it makes it so the soil will absorb and hold and retain that moisture a lot longer. So between the Back to Green or the Hydratane doesn't have the iron in there, but it has a longer residual out of it. So it's going to last at least 90 days, possibly even a little bit longer. But it's super, super absorbent and absorbs that water down into the soil, keeps it in the root zone where the roots can pick it up, and just will keep your lawn, gardens, flower beds, holding the moisture, the soil there, holding the moisture a lot longer than it would normally. And the company that makes both of these products suggests that it will help you reduce your watering by 30 to 50%, but still maintain a beautiful lawn and really nice plants and flowers. And we have noticed that is the case. I haven't been able to get 50% reduction out of it, but close to 40. I'd say probably 35 to 40%. So if you're watering 3 times a week to keep your lawn looking good, you apply the Hydratane or the Back to Green, you'll be able to cut one watering out completely and to just go with 2 waterings a week and maintain your lawn as green and beautiful as it was before. And if you do get on restrictions where you only can water once a week, those products will make it so your lawn won't go dormant. It won't be perfect, but it will really keep it a lot greener than it would be otherwise. So had a lot of homeowners come in from last year that used these products, and they have just pretty much flat out told us that it basically saved their lawn last year, where they just could not water. It was 100 degrees outside. They were only watering once a week, and their lawn stayed relatively green compared to their neighbors that all went dormant. And now everybody's paying the price because they've all got weeds. So lawns went a little dormant last year. The weeds kind of sneak in. Weeds like crazy this year. But between the Hydratane and the Back to Green, you can have a super green lawn with the Back to Green, especially with that iron content in there. Iron will really, really give you that deep, dark green. In fact, I fertilized my lawn about the latter part of March, and it's starting to, you can kind of see where it's kind of wearing out. I'm going to do the Back to Green this week, get that watered in, and it will just go that nice deep dark green again without growing so fast. That's the great thing about the Back to Green. It's not going to encourage a lot of growth, but it's going to give you that deep dark green and that water, help you with that water usage so much, and keep your lawn looking great without making it grow so fast you have to mow every 5 days. So between the Back to Green and the Hydratane on the lawns, and then in my garden, I've switched all my watering to soaker hoses and drip system. And so between the soaker hoses and the drippers, you're going to save probably 70 to 90% on your water usage. So compared to a sprinkler, a soaker hose will use 70% less water and do a better job watering because it puts the water right into the root zone without so much evaporation and loss of the water. So soaker hoses are a great, great option for vegetable gardens, for flower beds, for roses, for shrub areas. And if you go from a sprinkler to a drip system instead, install a drip system, which really sounds difficult, sounds kind of overwhelming on how to set up a drip system. They're actually really, really easy to do. And we have adapters that you can just link them right into your sprinkling system, so it'll water your shrubs or your trees or your vegetable garden right at the same time your sprinklers are going. Easy to set up, easy to build, easy to link into your existing water systems, whether it's a sprinkler system or to a hose bib where you can just hook the hose up to it. It will decrease your water usage by 90%. So if you switch from a sprinkler in your landscaped areas to a soaker hose, a drip system, you'll be able to use 90% less water with the same plants that you had before. So there's some really great options available for our homeowners and for gardeners to really save a lot of water in their landscape, but retain the plants and flowers and vegetables and things that you want to grow, even though you think they might be a little water needy. We can really cut the amount of water that you use to maintain those and keep them looking good throughout the season. So we've got about 5 minutes left in the garden guide. 753-5868, 753-KVNU. If you'd like to call in, we can probably sneak one more caller in if you got a question that you just can't wait to get answered. So otherwise, I'll be available at Anderson's all day today. I've got a great staff there that can help answer your questions, and greenhouses are loaded. We got lots of flowers, shrubs, vegetables. We just filled the vegetable house up yesterday. We had 3 trucks show up yesterday that we spent pretty much all day unloading, making the greenhouses look great. And lots of tomatoes back in stock, a lot of pepper varieties, and a lot of gorgeous flowers. So there's a lot of beautiful color in the greenhouses if you come back there. And even though it's cool outside, the sun's shining today, you can come stand in the greenhouse and really feel like spring weather is here at Anderson Seed and Garden. So coming up this week, we have our Wednesday classes, which are our lunch and learn classes that are going on during the Wednesday market on Center Street. So at 12:15 during the Wednesday market, we'll be doing our hanging basket recipe, like our secret recipe, that class this week. And it's free. You don't have to sign up or anything. It's just show up. And we had a great time with our tomato magic formula class this week. Everyone who came left learning something new about how to really grow tomatoes and be successful with their tomatoes. We can do the same thing with hanging baskets and planters as well too. And that class is at 12:15 on Wednesday. And we'll be doing different classes throughout the summer. Almost every Wednesday, I've got the extension service coming to do a perennial class the first week of June, and so we'll have all kinds of different classes going on throughout the summer, various topics. I think we're even doing like a salsa class where you can come and learn how to make salsa. So just some fun things going on this summer during the Wednesday market on Center Street at Anderson Seed and Garden. So don't forget that it's time to spray for codling moth coming up. So codling moth get into apples and pears, and the time to start spraying those is the first week of June. So the USU Extension has released all the spray dates for the entire state, and for Cache Valley, they're talking that first week of June. Sometime between the 2nd and the 8th of June is when you should have your first application of preventative insecticide on there for codling moth larvae, which gets little worms into your apples. So if you don't want little worms in your apples, start spraying around the 1st of June. And depending on what you're using to spray, there's a lot of great options, whether you want to go organic or if you want to go with a synthetic insecticide. And we will spray about every 2 to 3 weeks, depending on which product you use, to try and prevent those worms from getting into your apples. And it's also a perfect time to spray your stone fruits for various diseases, whether it's shot hole fungus, cranium blight. Got to get preventative application on here right after the blossoms drop off, which was just like this week they finished dropping. So a perfect time to spray for the stone fruits to prevent diseases in the fruit and also on the tree as well too. So a lot of great callers, a lot of great questions this week. I appreciate you all calling in. And Al, thank you so much for your assistance with the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And don't forget, it's Memorial Day weekend, next weekend. A lot of great things going on Anderson's. Special sale for Memorial Day weekend. You should see the flyer in the mail this week, and keep an eye out for that. But otherwise, we'll be back next week with another edition of the Garden Guide. You have a great weekend. Have fun out there in the garden. We'll see you next week.
Miss a minute? You're missing a lot. Breaking news, stimulating talk. News Talk, KVNU Logan, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.